extraordinary. I was just wondering also, Ian, I know that there's somebody doing wonderful work in Congo with the gorillas, isn't it? And I always mispronounce his name. Is it John Kahekwa?
John Kahekwa is a Congolese conservationist and has become a very good friend. We've known each other for 30-something years.
Yeah.
Yes, he was honoured by the Prince William Award that the Tusk Trust gave him last year. And I first met him when he was a very young gorilla guide, taking people to see the eastern lowland gorillas in Kahekwa National Park, which was founded by his uncle. And his uncle, Adrian de Schrijver, married a Congolese lady, and so became an uncle by marriage to John and his brothers and sisters. And also a bit of a role model, because John, and this is the power of film, John, as a teenager, saw the Survival Anglia film of Adrian de Schrijver, habituating the gorillas there, using a very different method to Diane. Diane was submissive and reassuring. De Schrijver just faced them, stand up. And both methods had their advantages and disadvantages, but now Kahekwa has adopted the karaoke method, and so there's less aggression. But at that time, the silverbacks would scream and charge, and de Schrijver would stand and face them, and there was a kind of a standoff. And John took that job because he spoke English. It's a francophone country. It was then Zaire. Now it's the DRC. And when I came along from Rwanda with some tourists, I was shocked by the fact that they were provoking a charge, because they thought that that's what the tourists wanted. They wanted to see the dramatic charge of the silverback. And it is dramatic, but it's unnecessary. And once tourism began in Rwanda to be popular, and visitors coming from the peaceful encounters in Rwanda saw how they were hitting the bushes and provoking the silverback to charge, because they thought that's what they said, no, we want to see the gorillas, not alarm them. And gradually that system changed. But after 20 odd years as a gorilla guide and habituator, John decided that the non-governmental organisation that he'd set up, the Poli Poli Foundation, should be his main focus. So he left the employment of the park and now runs Pop-Off, Poli Poli Foundation. And it's worth dwelling on what that means. John is a member of the community that lives around the park. That's where he grew up. Yeah. And he realised that the park would never be safe without the community involvement. But he knew it's going to be a long time working to develop that understanding and get the community on side. And in eastern Zaire, as it then was, DRC now, the most widely spoken language is Swahili. And the Swahili word for slowly is poli poli. So, knowing this was going to take a long time, he called the foundation the Slowly Foundation. Slowly they'll win the trust and the engagement of the communities. And that's what he was honoured for last year, and what he continues to do, to inspire young Congolese conservationists to protect the forest and the gorillas and the elephants.
That's great. So education is absolutely huge. I mean, I know that you were involved in initiatives with the bicycle-powered cinemas and so on, to educate the local people. And that's one initiative.
You're right that education is essential, but many of the poorest villages don't have schools, and if they do have schools, they may not have a building for the school. If they have a teacher, they might be learning under a tree or in a shed. And so one of John's more outlandish ideas was, in the middle of a civil war, was build a school. And he did so, one classroom at a time. So each new intake, new classroom. And now it's to tertiary level. He went through infant school, junior school, secondary school, and now it's a college.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just teach conservation; it teaches practical things, but organic farming and how to farm fish in pools and tree cultivation and lots of very, very useful activities, but with a conservation theme. And the students that graduate from the school are getting very good grades and compared to the national standards. So he's done some remarkable things, but many of the villages don't have electricity.
Yeah.
So if you want to use that power of film, which John was moved by as a teenager, which I and most people who have television or computer access see moving pictures, and yet you go into a school and there's no electricity, most of the kids have not seen a moving image.
Yeah.
Or if they have, it's because their dad took them into town with a bag of potatoes to sell, and they looked through a bar doorway and saw a football game on the screen.
Yeah.
And that's it for their knowledge of film. Yeah. And Congolese and many developing country TV stations can't afford to buy blue chip natural history. So it seems iniquitous that documentaries made for the developed world to view are not seen in the country where they're made, where the people most need to see and understand and be excited by them. Yeah. But I've been with African audiences watching documentaries, and you see their response to gorilla behaviour or elephant behaviours. And when they relate to that similarity between apes and us, you don't have to explain conservation to them. There's a great story that Gillian Miller, the director of the gorilla organisation, tells, standing in the back of a hall where one of our bicycle-powered cinemas, the kids are generating the electricity on a bicycle, which shows the film, and they're watching gorilla behaviour. And anyone who can squeeze into the hall will do so. So often you've got the church hall with makeshift blackouts to cover the windows. There's no glass in the windows, but there's boards and cardboard and sheets hanging up to get a bit of a blackout. And you're seeing this film. And this old lady said in the local language, which was translated for Gillian, when she saw a mother gorilla feeding her baby at her breast, "That's my sister." That's conservation education, not words, just immediate relating. And her husband was a poacher, and she said, "I'm going to have words with my husband." That's the way to get communities on side.
Yeah, I suppose because of the population and sort of increasing encroachment on sort of gorilla sort of habitat and areas, I suppose, do the trackers actually have to act as a kind of middleman in a way to start introducing, you know, the human element to the gorillas, so that if the gorillas then have any interaction with people from villages and so on, they're not completely spooked.
Yes, that process of habituation is a slow one. It can take 2 or 3 years to get a family comfortable with humans around, but you can only start that process when you are confident that they won't be attacked.
Yeah.
So the habituation is a risky thing to do if there's still a risk of poaching. Because as was sadly demonstrated in the DRC, when the conservationists, the government conservation authority, ICCN, tried to retake control of the Virunga National Park and put a stop to the illegal charcoal business, which was making some criminals millions of dollars a year, cutting down trees, very poor people with no way of earning money being employed to make charcoal and carry it for $1 a day or something to the market where it's sold for a handsome profit.
Yeah.
When ICCN tried to close that down, the charcoal barons, as they're known, corrupted one of the park officials and essentially hired a hit squad and sent men with guns out to the habituated gorillas that would be sitting, feeding, expecting the humans who protect them to protect them. And on this occasion, they basically assassinated a number of gorillas and left orphans, which had now been cared for at the Kahekwa Centre. And that shocked people. The communities that were pro-conservation, these gorillas are our neighbours, and they're the source of interest from tourists who come and hire us. So they are valued for all sorts of cultural and economic reasons. And for someone to do that as a message, saying "Don't mess with our business,"
Yeah.
was truly shocking.